The Admiral's blood-soaked fist connected with Dr. Thornton's jaw, sending him crashing into the surgical tray. Metal instruments exploded across the floor. 3 bullets in his chest weren't stopping Admiral James Hawthorne. He grabbed a scalpel from the tray and swung it at the nearest nurse, his eyes wild with combat delirium. "I will not be captured," he roared, backing the entire trauma team against the wall. Security raised their weapons, fingers on triggers. Then Emily Carter, the timid, incompetent nurse everyone mocked, stepped between the guns and the dying warrior. She leaned close to his ear and whispered 2 words that made the most dangerous man in the Pacific Fleet drop the blade and surrender. Words that proved the trembling nurse had been dead for 5 years. Naval Medical Center, San Diego. Thursday, September 14th, 2023, 2:47 p.m. Before we begin, if stories about hidden heroes, military secrets, and shocking revelations get your heart racing, hit that subscribe button right now. Stay with me until the very end of this story. Trust me, you won't believe where this goes. And drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can see how far this incredible true story has traveled. Now, let's go back to where it all started. Emily Carter's hands shook as she picked up the medication tray. She'd been shaking for 8 months straight, or at least everyone thought she had been. "Rose!" Dr. Marcus Thornton's voice cracked like a whip across the emergency room. He was 36, CrossFit obsessed, and wore his white coat like it was a crown. "How many times do I have to tell you? The IV goes in the left arm for surgical prep. Left. Can you manage that, or should I get someone competent?" Emily flinched, her shoulders hunching forward. "Yes, doctor. I'm sorry, doctor." She kept her gray-blue eyes down, staring at the tray. Her dirty blonde hair hung in a messy ponytail, loose strands falling around her face. The medium blue scrubs were deliberately too big, hiding what was underneath. Nobody looked at Emily Carter closely enough to see the truth. "This is what happens when they lower standards," Thornton said to Dr. Sarah Chen, the resident standing beside him. "We get nurses who can't handle basic protocols." Chen laughed. The appropriate response if you wanted to advance your career under Thornton. Maybe she should stick to bedpans. Emily's fingers tightened on the tray, but her face showed nothing except embarrassment. The thin scar above her left eyebrow caught the light briefly. Small marks dotted the backs of her hands, shrapnel scars, if anyone cared to look. Nobody ever did. "Rose, you're making that patient wait," Thornton snapped. "Move, now." Emily hurried toward room 3, head down, steps short and hesitant. She could feel the eyes of the other staff, a mixture of pity and contempt. The incompetent nurse. The one who somehow passed certification but clearly didn't belong in a high-stakes military hospital. Inside room 3, the patient, a young sailor with appendicitis, gave her a sympathetic smile. "Rough day?" "Every day," Emily whispered, her voice barely audible. She inserted the IV. Her hands appeared to shake, but the needle found the vein on the first try. Muscle memory didn't lie, even when everything else did. The sailor didn't notice. Nobody ever noticed Emily Carter. That was the point. The ER doors exploded open with a blast of hot California air in absolute chaos. "Move, move, move!" 4 Navy corpsmen rushed through the entrance, pushing a gurney at a dead sprint. The man on the gurney was massive, easily 6'5", probably 260 pounds of solid muscle, despite being in his 60s. His uniform was shredded, dark with blood. His face was a mask of rage and pain. "3-star Admiral," the lead corpsman shouted, his voice cutting through the organized chaos of the ER. "Admiral James Hawthorne, multiple GSWs to the chest and abdomen, BP crashing. He's combative. We couldn't sedate him." Emily pressed herself against the corridor wall, watching. Her trembling hands went completely still. Her posture shifted microscopically, shoulders back, weight balanced. She tracked every movement with laser precision. The Admiral's hands were moving even as blood poured from his chest. He wasn't just combative, he was tactical. "Hold him down," Thornton ordered as they transferred Hawthorne to the trauma bed. 5 medical staff tried to restrain him. It was like trying to hold down a wounded grizzly bear. "Ambush!" the Admiral roared, his voice like gravel scraping stone. 12 o'clock. RPG inbound. Get to cover." He swung a massive fist, catching an orderly in the chest. The man flew backward into a crash cart. Medical equipment scattered across the floor in a cacophony of metal and plastic. "Restraints!" Thornton yelled, backing away from the bed. "Leather restraints, now!" The Admiral grabbed a nurse by the wrist, not violently, but with military efficiency. He twisted, rotated, and suddenly she was on the ground. He'd torn free of 2 corpsmen. Blood sprayed across pristine white tiles. "Jesus Christ, he's going to bleed out!" Dr. Chen screamed. "Someone knock him out!" "I tried," a corpsman yelled back, holding up an empty syringe. "He burned through 10 milligrams of Versed like it was nothing." The Admiral rolled off the bed, hitting the floor hard. He immediately swept his hands across his chest, looking for gear that wasn't there. "Radio check," he gasped. "I need extraction. Position compromised." He was checking corners, calculating angles. His training was overriding the fact that he was dying. Security burst through the doors, 4 armed guards in tactical gear. "Stand down, sir," the lead guard commanded, hand on his holstered weapon. "Admiral, you need to stand down." Hawthorne grabbed a metal IV pole, swinging it in a defensive arc. "Get back, that's an order." His voice carried command authority even through delirium. "I will not be captured." The security team tried to flank him. The Admiral, despite 3 bullet wounds in his torso and catastrophic blood loss, read their movement instantly. He threw the IV pole like a spear, forcing them to scatter, then dropped into a combat stance that would have been impressive for a man in perfect health. For a dying 60-year-old man, it was terrifying. "He's psychotic," Thornton declared from behind an overturned gurney he was using as cover. "We need to put him under. Get me propofol, 200 milligrams, IV push." "That dose will kill him," Chen protested. "If we don't stop him, he'll kill someone else first." Emily Carter stood in the doorway, forgotten. Her trembling hands had gone completely still. She was reading the Admiral's movements like a language only she spoke. He wasn't fighting to hurt anyone. He was fighting to survive a threat that only existed in his fractured mind. Classic combat stress reaction triggered by catastrophic trauma. His brain had reverted to the moment of injury. Probably an ambush, probably recent, probably classified. The security team was closing in, batons drawn. If they struck him while he was in this state, they'd trigger an escalation. He'd kill someone, or they'd kill him. Emily made a decision. She stepped into the trauma bay. "Rose, get out!" Thornton screamed. "That's an order!" She ignored him. She walked slowly, deliberately toward the Admiral. Her hands were open, empty, non-threatening. Her body language remained submissive, but her eyes locked on his with an intensity that didn't match the rest of her performance. "Admiral Hawthorne," she said softly. Her voice cut through the chaos with unexpected clarity. The Admiral's head snapped toward her. He was swaying, his face gray from blood loss. "Stay back," he growled. But there was less certainty now. She wasn't moving like the others. She wasn't afraid. "Sir," Emily said, taking another step, "you're not compromised. You're safe." "Liar," he spat. "Hostiles, negative," Emily interrupted. Her voice shifted subtly. The timid nurse was gone. This voice was crisp, military, authoritative. "Threat assessment complete. No hostiles present. You're in a hospital, sir. Naval Medical Center, San Diego. You're stateside." The Admiral blinked, his vision focusing on her for the first time. He saw the blue scrubs, the hospital ID badge, but he also saw something else. The way she stood, the way she moved, the absolute absence of fear in her eyes. "Who?" he started, then stumbled. His knees buckled. Emily closed the distance in 2 quick strides, catching him before he hit the ground. She was impossibly strong for someone so small, controlling his descent with practiced efficiency. "Easy, Admiral," she said, her voice soft again but carrying steel underneath. "I've got you, but you need to let us work. You're bleeding out." Can't trust," he mumbled, his consciousness fading. Emily leaned close to his ear, close enough that no one else could hear. She whispered 4 words. "Hawkeye, this is Phoenix." The Admiral's eyes went wide. His entire body went rigid, every muscle locking. He stared at her face, truly seeing her for the first time. His expression shifted from confusion to shock, to something approaching disbelief. "Phoenix," he breathed, his voice barely audible. You're dead. They said, Kandahar, 2019. "Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated," Emily whispered, a ghost of a smile touching her lips. "Now stand down, Hawkeye. That's a direct order from your guardian angel." The Admiral's body went limp in her arms. Not unconscious, surrendered. The fight drained out of him all at once, replaced by trust, older and deeper than the wounds trying to kill him. "Phoenix," he whispered again, his hand reaching up to touch her face, as if to confirm she was real. His fingers trembled as they traced the thin scar above her left eyebrow. "The legend. You're real." "Lie down, Admiral," Emily said gently, easing him back onto the trauma bed that corpsmen were hastily writing. "Let us save your life. You've got a briefing to give me later." "Yes, ma'am," the Admiral said. Then his eyes rolled back and unconsciousness took him. The entire ER had gone silent. Dr. Thornton stood frozen, his mouth hanging open. Dr. Chen looked like she'd seen a ghost. The security team had lowered their weapons, staring at the small nurse who had just done what 6 trained men couldn't do. Emily turned to face them. For just a moment, less than a heartbeat, they saw something in her eyes that made every person in that room take an involuntary step backward. It wasn't anger. It wasn't threat. It was competence so absolute, so total, that it redefined the hierarchy in the room without a single word. Then she blinked, and the trembling, timid nurse was back. "Someone should probably start an IV," she stammered, her hands shaking again as she reached for supplies. He's lost a lot of blood," Thornton found his voice. "How did you—" "I don't know," Emily interrupted quickly, not meeting his eyes. I talked to him. He calmed down. Can we save him, please?" She was already working. Her trembling hands somehow placed an 18-gauge IV line on the first stick. She drew blood for type and cross. She assessed the wounds with a speed that seemed at odds with her apparent nervousness. Thornton watched her, suspicion flickering across his face. But the Admiral was dying, and questions could wait. "Everyone, positions," he barked. "Chen, get a central line in. I want a chest tube kit ready. Rose, hang the blood when it arrives." "Yes, doctor," Emily whispered, her head down again. But as she worked, as she slipped back into her carefully constructed disguise, one of the security guards, a former Army Ranger named Ryan Davis, stood in the doorway and watched her with narrowed eyes. He had heard what she said. Not the call signs. He'd been too far away for that. But he'd heard her voice change. He'd seen her move. He'd watched a 5'4" nurse control a 6'5" Admiral like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Davis pulled out his phone and took a discreet photo of her hospital ID badge. Something wasn't right about Nurse Emily Carter, and he was going to find out what. Admiral James Hawthorne survived the surgery. Barely. Dr. Thornton worked for 4 hours, repairing perforated intestines, a nicked renal artery, extracting 3 7.62 millimeter rounds that had somehow missed every vital organ by millimeters. It was surgical skill combined with impossible luck. Or maybe not luck. Maybe someone had been protecting him. Emily Rose stood in the corner of the OR during the entire procedure. She handed instruments when asked, kept her eyes down, said nothing. But twice, when the Admiral's blood pressure crashed and Thornton froze in indecision, Emily quietly adjusted the anesthesia drip and the vasopressor dosages without being asked. Dr. Chen noticed. She said nothing, but she noticed. The Admiral was moved to the ICU, surgical wing, level 3, a secure floor reserved for high-ranking military personnel. 2 armed Marines stood outside his door. A third sat inside the room, watching the monitors. Emily was assigned as his primary nurse for the night shift. Thornton made the assignment personally, though his reasons were unclear. Maybe he wanted to see if she'd crack under pressure. Maybe he was testing her. Or maybe he just didn't want to waste a competent nurse on what he assumed would be simple post-op monitoring. "Keep him sedated," Thornton ordered, reviewing the chart at the nurse's station. "No visitors except command staff with clearance. If he wakes up combative again, page me immediately. Do not engage him alone." "Yes, doctor," Emily whispered, taking the chart with trembling hands. Thornton looked at her with narrowed eyes. "Rose, what you did in the ER today—" "I just talked to him," she interrupted quickly. "I didn't do anything special. You called him by name. You used his rank. How did you know who he was?" Emily's face flushed. "The corpsman. They said it when they brought him in. I remembered." It was a lie. The corpsman had said it, but Emily had known who Admiral James Hawthorne was the moment she saw his face. She'd known him for 15 years, though he had no memory of ever meeting her. Not as Emily Carter, anyway. Thornton didn't look convinced, but he let it go. "Just watch him. And Rose, don't touch anything you're not qualified to touch." "Yes, doctor." As Thornton walked away, Dr. Chen lingered at the station. She pulled up Emily's personnel file on the computer, reading through it with careful attention. Emily Carter, age 32, graduated from a mid-tier nursing program in Nevada. Average grades, no military service, no prior hospital experience before Naval Medical Center. References checked out, but they were generic, former instructors who barely remembered her. It was a perfectly unremarkable file. Too unremarkable. Chen closed the file and looked toward the ICU where Emily had disappeared. Something was wrong. The way that nurse had moved in the trauma bay, the way she'd controlled the Admiral, the way her hands suddenly stopped shaking when she placed that IV line. "Dr. Chen," a voice interrupted her thoughts. It was Davis, the security guard from earlier. "Can I ask you something about Nurse Carter?" Chen's eyes sharpened. "What about her? How long has she worked here?" 8 months, why?" Davis shifted uncomfortably. "I've been doing security here for 3 years. I've seen a lot of nurses handle combative patients. But what she did today?" He shook his head. "That wasn't nursing. That was tactical de-escalation, military grade. You think she has a service record?" "I think someone with her skill set doesn't just end up as a mediocre nurse," Davis said carefully. "I ran her name through the VA database. Nothing. Social Security checks out. Credit history is clean, but it's all very recent. Nothing before 2019. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying she's using a false identity?" "I'm saying someone should ask her the right questions," Davis replied, "because Admiral Hawthorne recognized her. I saw his face. He knew her." Inside the ICU room, Emily stood beside the Admiral's bed, checking his vitals. The Marine guard sat in the corner, watching her with the intensity of someone trained to spot threats. The Admiral's face was gray, his breathing assisted by supplemental oxygen. IV lines ran into both arms. A chest tube drained blood-tinged fluid into a collection chamber. Emily's trembling hands moved across the equipment, checking connections, adjusting drip rates. But her eyes were scanning his wounds with a precision that had nothing to do with basic nursing. Entry wounds, center mass, tight grouping, professional shooter. The rounds had tumbled after impact, creating maximum internal damage, but somehow missing the aorta and inferior vena cava. The Admiral should be dead. Someone had gotten very lucky, or very unlucky, depending on what secrets he carried. "Nurse!" The Marine's voice was sharp. Emily jumped, her submissive posture snapping back into place. "Yes?" "You were staring at him." "I was just checking his breathing," she stammered, "making sure the oxygen flow is adequate." The Marine didn't look convinced. "What did you say to him in the ER? I saw you lean down and whisper something. What was it?" Emily's heart hammered against her ribs. "I just told him he was safe, that's all." "He called you something, a name. What was it?" "I don't know what you mean," Emily lied, her voice barely audible. "He was delirious. He was saying a lot of things." The Marine stood up, taking a step toward her. He was 6'2", muscular, intimidating. "Ma'am, with respect, I've been doing close protection for 8 years. I know when someone is lying." Emily backed toward the door, her eyes wide, her body language screaming vulnerability. "I'm not lying. I don't know anything. I'm just a nurse. Please, I need to check on other patients." The heart monitor alarm suddenly shrieked. Both Emily and the Marine spun toward the bed. Admiral Hawthorne's body was seizing, his back arching off the mattress, his teeth clenched. The monitor showed a heart rate of 180 and climbing. "Code blue!" the Marine yelled, lunging for the emergency button. But Emily was already moving. She didn't run for help. She didn't freeze in panic. She crossed the room in 3 strides, her trembling gone, her movement suddenly fluid and precise. She grabbed the Admiral's jaw, forcing his head to the side to prevent aspiration. Her other hand slammed down on the code button. "V-fib," she snapped, reading the monitor. "He's coding. Get the crash cart." The Marine stared at her. The terrified, stuttering nurse from 10 seconds ago had vanished. This woman had command presence. "Now!" Emily roared. The Marine ran. The code team burst through the door 30 seconds later, Dr. Chen leading, 2 nurses and a respiratory therapist behind her. They found Emily performing chest compressions with textbook precision. Her small frame generated enough force to make the Admiral's entire body compress with each thrust. "How long?" Chen demanded, taking position at the head of the bed. 45 seconds, Emily said, not stopping compressions. V-tac deteriorated to V-fib. No pulse. "I've been compressing at 110 per minute, depth approximately 2 inches. Chen blinked. That was exact protocol. Perfect rate, perfect depth, perfect terminology. This wasn't a mediocre nurse. This was someone with advanced cardiac life support training. "Charge to 200, Chen ordered. "Everyone clear!" Emily stepped back. The shock delivered. The Admiral's body convulsed. The monitor showed continued V-fib. "Resume compressions," Chen said. "Charge to 300. Push 1 milligram of epi." Emily started compressions again. But as she worked, Chen noticed something that made her blood run cold. Emily's hands weren't just doing compressions. Between cycles, in the brief pauses, her fingers were palpating the Admiral's chest, feeling along the ribs, checking something. "Rose, what are you doing?" Chen asked sharply. "Rib fractures," Emily said, her voice steady and clinical. "Left side ribs 7 and 8. I felt crepitus. If we keep compressing at this angle, we'll drive the fracture into his lung. We need to adjust hand position 2 centimeters medial." Chen stared at her. A mediocre nurse wouldn't know to check for rib fractures during CPR. A mediocre nurse wouldn't know the term crepitus. A mediocre nurse wouldn't have the presence of mind to adjust compressions to prevent pneumothorax. "How do you?" Chen started. "Shock him," Emily interrupted, stepping back. "Now." Chen delivered the second shock. This time, the monitor showed a rhythm. Slow, irregular, but a rhythm. "Sinus bradycardia," Emily announced. "Rate 45. Push atropine, 0.5 milligrams. "I didn't ask for your," Chen began but stopped. Because Emily was right. That was exactly the correct intervention. Chen administered the atropine. The Admiral's heart rate climbed to 70, stabilized. His chest rose and fell with ventilator breaths. The room exhaled collectively. "He's stable," Chen said, checking the monitor. "Pulse is steady. BP is 110/70. He's back." Emily stepped away from the bed. As she did, the transformation reversed. Her shoulders hunched. Her hands started trembling. Her eyes dropped to the floor. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I shouldn't have. I just reacted." Chen grabbed her arm. "Rose, look at me." Emily didn't look up. "Look at me." Emily raised her eyes slowly. They were wide, frightened, the perfect image of a terrified nurse who had just been involved in her first code. But Dr. Chen had seen the truth. For 60 seconds, this woman had run that code with the precision of an ICU specialist. "Who are you?" Chen asked quietly. "I'm just a nurse," Emily whispered. Before Chen could respond, a weak voice came from the bed. "Phoenix." Everyone turned. Admiral Hawthorne's eyes were half open, unfocused, but he was staring directly at Emily. "Phoenix," he repeated, his voice barely audible through the oxygen mask. "Kandahar, you saved 12 men." Chen's grip on Emily's arm tightened. "What is he talking about?" "He's delirious," Emily said quickly. "Post-cardiac arrest confusion. It's normal." "You're the guardian angel," the Admiral slurred, his hand reaching weakly toward her. "They said you died, but you're here. How?" His eyes rolled back. Unconsciousness reclaimed him. The room was silent. Dr. Chen released Emily's arm and took a step back. "Nurse Carter," she said slowly, "you're relieved of duty, effective immediately. But that wasn't a request. Go home. Don't come back until we've had a conversation with HR and security." Emily's face went pale. "Dr. Chen, please, I need this job." "Then you'll answer some questions," Chen said coldly. "Because right now I don't know if you're a hero or a threat. And until I do, you're not touching another patient in this hospital." Emily stood frozen for a moment, then nodded. She walked toward the door, head down, shoulders hunched. But as she passed the Marine Guard, he saw something that made him reach for his radio. The thin scar above her left eyebrow, the small shrapnel marks on her hands. The way she moved, even in defeat, weight balanced, always aware of exits. "Control, this is Davis," he said quietly into his radio. "I need a background check, priority level. Subject is Emily Carter, RN. I think we have an infiltrator." Emily didn't go home. She couldn't, not yet. She sat in her beat-up Honda Civic in the hospital parking garage, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight her knuckles went white. The overhead fluorescent lights flickered, casting shadows that moved like ghosts across the concrete walls. 8 months. 8 months of being invisible, of swallowing her pride, of letting doctors half her skill level treat her like she was incompetent. All of it, gone, burned, because she'd made a choice to save a man's life instead of protecting her cover. She reached under the driver's seat and pulled out a burner phone, the kind you bought at gas stations with cash, the kind that had no connection to Emily Carter or anyone else. Her finger hovered over the power button. If she turned it on, if she made that call, everything would change. They'd pull her out. New identity, new city, new life. The Admiral would be someone else's problem. Emily stared at the phone. Then she put it back under the seat. A knock on her window made her jump, her hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Ryan Davis stood outside her car, still in his security uniform. His face was hard, unreadable. Emily's heart hammered. She rolled down the window halfway. "Can I help you?" Her voice was small, uncertain. The mask was back. "Step out of the car, please," Davis said. "It wasn't a request." "I don't." "Ma'am, you can step out voluntarily, or I can call for backup and we can do this officially. Your choice." Emily's mind calculated options. Fight, she could disarm him in 3 seconds. Run, she knew 6 exits from this garage. Comply, and find out what he actually knew. She opened the door and stepped out slowly, keeping her hands visible. Davis took a step back, maintaining distance. Smart. He'd been trained well. "How long have you been following me?" Emily asked quietly. "Since you left the ICU. You didn't notice?" Davis raised an eyebrow. "That's interesting, because the woman who took down Admiral Hawthorne in the ER should have spotted a tail within the first block." Emily said nothing. "You want to tell me what's really going on, Nurse Carter? Or should I call you by your real name?" "I don't know what you're—" "Commander Emily Torres," Davis said, his voice cutting through her denial like a knife. "DEVGRU, SEAL Team 6. Presumed killed in action, Kandahar, Afghanistan, March 2019. The first woman to ever pass BUD/S training. They called you Phoenix because you could bring dying operators back from the edge. You saved 18 lives in combat before you were 28 years old." Emily felt the blood drain from her face. "That's classified information. How did you—" "I made some calls," Davis said. "I have friends who remember Phoenix, friends who were there when you supposedly died." He paused. "Funny thing, though, nobody ever saw a body. Just a lot of blood in a battlefield that got hit with airstrikes 30 minutes after the extraction." Emily's hands weren't shaking anymore. She stood perfectly still, evaluating threat levels, exit strategies. "If you know all that," she said carefully, "then you know why I can't confirm or deny anything you just said. I know the Admiral recognized you. I know you used a classified call sign. And I know—" Davis's radio crackled, interrupting him. "All units, Code Silver, ICU Level 3, possible intruder. Repeat, Code Silver." Both of them froze. Emily's eyes went wide. "He's alone. The Admiral's alone except for one Marine guard. What are you—" But Emily was already running. She sprinted toward the elevator, Davis right behind her. "Carter, wait! You're suspended! You can't—" "If someone's going after him, that Marine won't be enough," Emily said, her voice completely different now. No trembling, pure command. "You want answers? Help me keep him alive and I'll tell you everything." The elevator doors opened. They both jumped in. Davis hit the button for Level 3. "Why would someone go after the Admiral now? He's unconscious, guarded." "Because unconscious means he can't talk," Emily said. "And someone clearly doesn't want him talking about whatever got him shot in the first place." The elevator climbed, too slowly. Emily watched the numbers tick up, her mind already running through scenarios. "When we get there, follow my lead," she said. "You're a suspended nurse." "No," Emily said, meeting his eyes. "I'm the person who's kept that man alive twice today, and I'm not letting someone finish the job." The elevator dinged. Level 3. The doors opened onto chaos. 2 nurses were screaming. The Marine guard was on the floor, unconscious. And standing at the Admiral's bedside, adjusting something in the IV line, was another nurse. Male, tall. His name tag read Morrison. Emily didn't think. She moved. "Step away from that bed!" Her voice cracked across the ICU like thunder. Morrison's head snapped toward her. His eyes widened. Recognition, calculation, then decision. He ran. Morrison bolted toward the emergency exit, shoving past a nurse with enough force to send her sprawling. Davis lunged for him, but Morrison was fast. He twisted, delivered a precise strike to Davis's throat that dropped him, gasping. Emily was already moving. She closed the distance in seconds, her body remembering training she hadn't used in years. Morrison hit the exit door, but Emily caught him at the threshold. She grabbed his collar and yanked him backward with strength that shocked him. "Who sent you?" she demanded. Morrison's elbow came up fast, aimed at her face. Emily blocked it, twisted his arm behind his back, drove him face first into the wall. "I asked you a question." Morrison tried to throw her off. He was bigger, stronger, but Emily had training that went beyond size. She applied pressure to his shoulder joint, just short of dislocation. Morrison screamed. Last chance, Emily said, her voice ice cold. Who sent you? You're too late, Morrison spat. He's already dead. I gave him enough potassium to stop an elephant's heart. He'll code in 90 seconds, and there's nothing. Emily didn't wait for him to finish. She drove her knee into the back of his legs, dropped him, and sprinted back to the Admiral's room. The heart monitor was already alarming. The Admiral's rhythm was deteriorating fast. Davis, Emily shouted, get security. Lock this floor down. Nobody in or out. She didn't wait for confirmation. She ran to the Admiral's bedside, ripped out the contaminated IV line, and started a new one with hands that moved so fast they blurred. What did he give him? Dr. Chen appeared in the doorway, her face pale. Potassium chloride, Emily said, her voice clipped and professional. Hyperkalemia. We need calcium gluconate now, or his heart stops. Chen hesitated for half a second, because this was a suspended nurse giving orders, then grabbed the medication cart. 10 milligrams IV push, Emily said, already drawing up the syringe. We need to stabilize his cardiac membranes before... The monitor flatlined. He's in arrest, Chen screamed. Emily was already starting compressions. Her small frame generated shocking force, each compression precise and controlled. Someone get me an ambu bag, she ordered, and charge the defibrillator to 200. A nurse ran for the equipment. Another stood frozen in shock. Move, Emily roared, or he dies. The authority in her voice snapped everyone into action. Chen administered the calcium gluconate while Emily continued compressions. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, check rhythm, still flatline. Charge to 200, Chen called. Clear. Emily stepped back. The shock delivered. The Admiral's body convulsed. The monitor showed continued asystole. Resume compressions, Emily said, getting back into position. Push 1 milligram of epinephrine and get me sodium bicarbonate, 50 milliequivalents. Chen stared at her. How do you know? Because I've treated hyperkalemic arrests in the field under enemy fire, Emily snapped. Are you going to help me, or are you going to let him die while you ask questions? Chen grabbed the medications. Emily compressed. She could feel the Admiral's ribs flexing under her hands, could feel his life slipping away with each second that passed. Come on, Hawkeye, she whispered. You don't get to die. Not today. Not after surviving 3 bullets in my cooking in Kandahar. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Charge to 300, Chen ordered. Emily stepped back. The second shock delivered. This time the monitor showed a blip, then another. Slow, irregular, but there. We have a rhythm, Chen said, her voice shaking with relief. Sinus bradycardia, rate 45. Push atropine, Emily said. 0.5 milligrams. And hang a second bag of saline. We need to dilute whatever potassium is still in his system. The medications went in. The Admiral's heart rate climbed to 60, then 70. His blood pressure stabilized. Emily checked his pupils, checked his breathing, checked everything with the systematic precision of someone who'd done this 100 times in conditions far worse than a modern ICU. He's stable, she finally said, stepping back from the bed. Her scrubs were soaked with sweat. Her hands were steady, but her legs were shaking now. Adrenaline crash. The room was silent except for the beeping of monitors. Dr. Chen looked at Emily with an expression that was part shock, part awe, part something close to fear. Who are you? Chen whispered. Before Emily could answer, Davis stumbled into the room, his hand at his throat where Morrison had struck him. Morrison's secured, he rasped. Security has him in custody. He tried to take a cyanide capsule, but we stopped him in time. Good, Emily said, because I have questions for him. We all have questions, a new voice said from the doorway. Director Rebecca Walsh stood there, flanked by 2 men in dark suits who had federal agent written all over them. Emily's heart sank. This was it, the moment where everything fell apart. "Nurse Carter," Walsh said, her voice cold and controlled. "Or should I say, Commander Torres, you're coming with us. Now." Emily looked at the Admiral, still unconscious but alive. Looked at Dr. Chen, whose expression had shifted from shock to betrayal. Looked at Davis, who was watching her with an intensity that said he still wasn't sure whose side she was on. "I need to stay with the Admiral," Emily said quietly. "Someone just tried to kill him. They'll try again." "That's not your concern anymore," one of the suits said, stepping forward. "You're under investigation for operating under a false identity, practicing medicine without proper credentials, and saving a 3-star Admiral's life," Emily interrupted, "twice in the last 6 hours. That doesn't change." The Admiral's hand moved. His fingers twitched, reaching for something that wasn't there. Emily was at his bedside instantly. She took his hand, squeezed gently. "It's okay," she said softly. "You're safe. I've got you." The Admiral's eyes flickered open, unfocused and clouded with medication. "Phoenix," he mumbled. "They're coming. Ghost ship. They're coming for all of us." Everyone in the room froze. "What did he just say?" Walsh demanded. "He's delirious," Emily said quickly. "Post-arrest confusion." "Ghost ship," the Admiral said again, his grip tightening on Emily's hand with surprising strength. "Keller, Vice Admiral Keller, he's the one. Operation Nightfall, 12 operators, black sites." His voice trailed off, consciousness slipping away again. The two suits exchanged glances. Something passed between them, recognition, maybe fear. "Everyone out," the first suit said. "This room is now classified. Medical personnel only, and only those with clearance." "This is my hospital," Walsh protested. "Not anymore," the suit said, pulling out credentials. "Homeland Security, this is now a federal investigation." He looked at Emily. "Commander Torres, you're coming with us. We have a lot to discuss." Emily looked down at the Admiral. His eyes were closed again, but his hand still held hers. She gently extracted her fingers and stepped back. "I'll cooperate," she said quietly. "But first you need to know something. That man, Morrison, he didn't act alone. He said something before I stopped him. He said, 'You're too late.' Not 'I'm too late.' You're, plural, which means there are more of them," Davis finished, his eyes widening. Emily nodded. This wasn't an opportunistic attack. This was coordinated, professional. And if Morrison was willing to take cyanide rather than be interrogated, that tells me. The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. Somewhere below them, an explosion shook the building. Emily's training took over instantly. "Everyone down! Get away from the windows!" Gunfire erupted in the hallway. Not the controlled shots of security guards, the suppressed cracks of professional operators. "They're here," Emily said, her voice deadly calm. "Ghost ship is here, and they're coming for the Admiral." She turned to Walsh. "I need a weapon, now." "You're suspended." "Director Walsh," Emily said, her eyes hard as stone. "You have maybe 3 minutes before trained killers reach this room. You can spend those 3 minutes arguing with me, or you can give me a gun and let me do what I was trained to do. Your choice." Walsh looked at her, looked at the Admiral, looked at the federal agents who were already drawing their weapons. She pulled a 9mm from her desk drawer and handed it to Emily. "Don't make me regret this." Emily checked the magazine, chambered around, and moved to a position beside the door. "Davis," she said, "you said you were a ranger. Were you lying?" 75th Regiment, Davis said, pulling his service weapon. 3 tours. "Then you know how to move. Get the Admiral to an interior room. No windows, 1 entry point, barricaded." "What are you going to do?" Emily's smile was cold and dangerous. "I'm going to remind these people why they called me Phoenix. Because I don't just bring people back from the dead." She chambered around. "I send their enemies there." The gunfire was getting closer. Screams echoed through the hallways. Emily looked at Dr. Chen. Get every patient and staff member into lockdown rooms. Follow hospital shooter protocols and stay away from the windows. Chen nodded, too shocked to argue anymore. The federal agents took positions on either side of the doorway. Commander Torres, the first one said, we should fall back, establish a defensive. They're not here to take prisoners, Emily interrupted. They're here to eliminate witnesses. The Admiral, me, anyone who heard what he just said about Vice Admiral Keller in Operation Nightfall. She looked at each of them. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to get him to safety, and I'm going to buy you the time to do it. You can't take them alone. Watch me. Emily stepped into the hallway. 3 operators appeared at the far end, moving with tactical precision. Suppressed rifles, night vision, body armor. They saw her, a small woman in blood-stained scrubs, standing alone in the corridor. One of them raised his weapon. Emily didn't give him the chance to fire. She moved like water, like shadow, like something that shouldn't exist. 5 years of hiding, of pretending to be weak, of swallowing her pride, all of it burned away in an instant. The first operator went down before he could pull the trigger. Emily had closed 20 feet in seconds, disarmed him, used his own rifle to put 3 rounds through the second operator's chest. The third operator fired. Rounds tore through the space where Emily had been a heartbeat earlier. She rolled, came up behind a nurse's station, and returned fire with controlled bursts. The operator dove for cover. Emily didn't give him time to recover. She was already moving, flanking, getting the angle. She put 2 rounds through the gap in his body armor, right where the plates didn't overlap. He went down. 3 operators, 15 seconds. Emily grabbed one of their rifles, checked the magazine, and moved deeper into the corridor. Behind her, she heard Davis and the federal agents moving the Admiral. Good. That bought them maybe 2 minutes before the second wave arrived. Because there would be a second wave, there always was. Emily's earpiece, taken from one of the dead operators, crackled to life. Alpha team down, a voice said. Professional, calm. Phoenix is active. Repeat, Phoenix is confirmed alive and active. All teams converge on ICU level 3. Keller wants her dead within the next 5 minutes. Emily's blood ran cold. Vice Admiral Keller, the Admiral's second in command, the man he'd mentioned with his dying breath. It wasn't just Ghost Ship coming for them. It was someone with the authority and resources to coordinate a full-scale assault on a military hospital. And Emily was standing alone between them and a man who knew too much. She pressed the transmit button on the captured radio. This is Phoenix, she said, her voice carrying through every operator's earpiece. You want me? Come and get me. But know this, I killed 12 Taliban fighters in Kandahar with nothing but a combat knife and a prayer. What do you think I'm going to do to you with a rifle and a reason? She released the button and smiled. Then she heard footsteps, multiple, coming from both ends of the corridor. They were boxing her in. Emily didn't wait for them to close the trap. She moved first. She grabbed a crash cart and shoved it hard down the left corridor, then sprinted right. The cart crashed into the first operator, buying her 3 precious seconds. Muzzle flashes lit up the hallway behind her. Rounds punched through walls, shattered equipment, tore apart everything in their path. Emily dove through an open doorway into a patient room. The elderly veteran in the bed was sitting up, eyes wide with terror. Stay down, Emily ordered, pulling him to the floor behind the bed. Don't move. Don't make a sound. She heard boots in the corridor, at least 4 operators moving in formation. Emily positioned herself beside the door, rifle ready. Her heart was steady, her breathing controlled. This was what she'd been trained for. The first operator cleared the doorway fast and smooth. Emily let him pass. The second one followed. Emily moved. She struck the second operator's rifle, redirecting his aim upward as he fired. Rounds went into the ceiling. She drove her knee into his gut, grabbed his vest, and used his body as a shield when the third operator fired. The rounds hit his partner instead of her. Emily shoved the dying man forward into the third operator, knocking him off balance. She was on him in a heartbeat, disarming him with a wrist lock that made him scream. The first operator spun around, bringing his weapon to bear. Emily grabbed the third operator's dropped rifle and fired from the hip. 3 rounds, center mass. The first operator went down. The fourth operator appeared in the doorway. Emily threw the rifle at him like a spear, hitting him in the face shield hard enough to crack it. He stumbled back. She closed the distance, drove her elbow into his throat, and stripped his weapon while he was choking. 4 more operators down, but her stolen radio was already crackling with more bad news. Bravo team, moving to ICU room 412. Target is secured. Beginning termination protocol. Room 412. The Admiral's new location. Emily's blood turned to ice. She ran, sprinted down the corridor faster than she'd moved in 5 years, her legs burning, her lungs screaming. She heard Davis's voice ahead. "Stay back, I will shoot." Then gunfire. The heavy crack of Davis's service weapon, followed by the suppressed response of military-grade rifles. Emily hit the doorway at a full run and took in the scene in a fraction of a second. Davis was down, clutching his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. One federal agent was dead, slumped against the wall. The other was exchanging fire with 2 operators who had the Admiral's room surrounded. The Admiral lay on a hospital bed in the center of the room, unconscious and completely vulnerable. Emily didn't announce herself. She just started shooting. The first operator took 2 rounds to the back before he knew she was there. The second one turned, but Emily was already moving, using the doorframe as cover. She and the surviving federal agent caught the second operator in a crossfire. He went down hard. Emily swept the room. "Clear." "Davis, how bad?" "Through and through," Davis gasped, his face pale. "I'll live, but they've got more teams. I heard them on the radio, at least 2 more squads in the building." Emily moved to the Admiral, checked his vitals. Still stable, still sedated, still alive. "We need to get him out of here," the federal agent said. His name tag read Martinez. "My partner's dead. We're outnumbered and outgunned." "We can't move him," Emily said. "His condition's too unstable. Moving him could kill him." "Staying here will definitely kill him," Martinez shot back. Emily's mind raced through options, none of them good. Her stolen radio crackled again. "All units, priority 1. Phoenix has eliminated Alpha and Bravo teams. Charlie team, converge on room 412. Delta team, secure the exits. We're ending this now." "How many operators are we talking about?" Martinez demanded. Emily listened to the chatter on the radio, counting call signs and positions. "At least 8 more, plus whoever's coordinating this from outside. We need backup, SWAT, Marines, somebody." "By the time they get here, we'll be dead," Emily said flatly. She looked at Davis. "Can you shoot with that shoulder?" Davis picked up his weapon with his good hand. "Well enough." Emily turned to Martinez. "You got any more of those federal badges? The kind that make people do what you say?" "Why?" "Because I have an idea, but it's going to sound insane." 3 minutes later, Emily was back in the corridor, walking slowly with her hands raised above her head. She'd stripped off the tactical vest, ditched the rifle. Just a small woman in bloody scrubs, looking scared and defeated. "Don't shoot," she called out. "I surrender, please don't shoot." 2 operators appeared at the end of the corridor, weapons raised. "On your knees," one of them ordered. "Hands behind your head." Emily complied, dropping to her knees, lacing her fingers behind her head, every movement screaming submission. The operators approached cautiously, smart. They'd seen what she could do. "Phoenix, right?" the lead operator said, standing 10 feet back, weapon trained on her center mass. "The legend herself. Gotta say, you're shorter than I expected." "Are you going to kill me?" Emily asked, her voice shaking. "Please, I'm just a nurse. I don't know anything about—" "Cut the act," the operator interrupted. "We know who you are. We know what you did in Kandahar. And we know you're the only person who can identify Vice Admiral Keller as the one behind Operation Nightfall." He paused. "So yeah, we're going to kill you. But first, you're going to tell us where the Admiral hid the evidence." Emily's eyes widened. "What evidence?" "The drives, the recordings, the documents proving Keller ordered the black site operations. Hawthorne hid them somewhere before we could hit him. You're going to tell us where." "I don't know what you're talking about." The operator took a step closer. "Wrong answer." He raised his weapon, aiming for her head. That's when Davis and Martinez opened fire from their flanking positions. Emily had led the operators right into a kill zone. Davis fired from a patient room to the left, Martinez from a supply closet to the right. The lead operator took rounds from both sides. His partner tried to dive for cover, but Emily was already moving. She swept his legs, grabbed his rifle as he fell, and put 3 rounds through his chest at contact distance. "Clear!" Martinez called. Emily stood up, breathing hard. "That's 6 more down. How many left?" Her radio answered for her. "All teams, Phoenix has engaged Charlie units. Delta team, execute contingency plan Echo. Burn the whole floor. No survivors." Emily's stomach dropped. "They're going to firebomb the ICU. We need to evacuate now." "We can't move the Admiral," Davis protested. "We don't have a choice anymore," Emily said. She ran back to room 412, started unhooking the Admiral from monitors. "Martinez, get a gurney. Davis, can you walk?" "I can run if I have to." Emily worked fast, disconnecting IV lines, switching the Admiral to a portable oxygen tank. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, but her mind was racing. Firebombing a hospital floor was an act of desperation, which meant Keller was getting desperate, which meant whatever the Admiral knew was worth burning the evidence and the witnesses to ash. "We need to get him out of here," Emily said, helping Martinez lift the Admiral onto a gurney. "But not through the main corridors. They'll have those covered." "Then how?" Davis asked, pressing a bandage against his shoulder wound. Emily thought fast. "Service elevator. Maintenance access. Takes us down to the basement level, then we can get to the parking garage." "That's 5 floors down with a critically injured patient and a building full of killers," Martinez said. "You got a better idea?" He didn't. They started moving, Emily leading, Martinez pushing the gurney, Davis bringing up the rear despite his injured shoulder. Emily's stolen radio kept broadcasting bad news. "Delta team in position. Thermal charges armed. Detonation in 3 minutes." 3 minutes. Emily ran faster, pulling the gurney behind her. They hit the service elevator and she slammed the down button. Nothing happened. Come on," she muttered, hitting it again. "They've locked down the elevators," Martinez said. "We're trapped." Emily looked at Davis. "How's your climbing?" "What?" "The elevator shaft. We climb down. It's our only option." "With an unconscious Admiral on a gurney? Are you insane?" "You're right," Emily said. "It's impossible. But it's also our only chance." She forced the elevator doors open with a pry bar from an emergency cabinet. The shaft dropped away into darkness below them. "There," Emily said, pointing to the service ladder attached to the shaft wall. "We tie him to the gurney, attach rope to the gurney, lower him down while we climb beside him." "That's the stupidest plan I've ever heard," Davis said. 2 minutes, the radio announced. "Delta team, beginning withdrawal." Emily looked at both men. "Stupid plan or burn to death? Choose." They chose the stupid plan. Emily found rope in a supply closet, secured it to the gurney with knots she'd learned in SEAL training. Martinez and Davis helped her move the Admiral, gurney and all, into the elevator shaft. "Lower him slowly," Emily ordered, climbing onto the service ladder. "I'll go first, guide him down. Martinez, you control the rope from above. Davis, you come down after us." "This is never going to work," Martinez muttered, but he grabbed the rope. They started lowering the Admiral into the darkness. Emily climbed down beside the gurney, using her body to stabilize it against the shaft wall when it swung. Her arms burned, her legs shook, but she kept moving. Above them, she heard an explosion, then another. Fire and smoke started pouring down the elevator shaft. "Go, go, go!" Martinez yelled. They dropped faster, too fast. The gurney slammed against the wall. The Admiral groaned, but didn't wake. Emily's hands slipped on the ladder rungs. She caught herself, kept descending. Another explosion. Closer this time. The entire shaft shook. "We're not going to make it," Davis shouted from above. "Yes, we are," Emily yelled back. "We're almost there." She could see the basement-level doors below them now, maybe 20 more feet. The rope creaked, started to fray. "The rope's breaking," Martinez called down. Emily looked up, saw the strands separating one by one. She made a split-second decision. She let go of the ladder, grabbed the gurney with both arms, and used her body to control the descent as the rope snapped. They fell together. Emily, the Admiral, the gurney, all of them dropping the last 10 feet. Emily hit the basement-level doors hard, her body absorbing most of the impact. The gurney crashed beside her. Pain exploded through her back, her ribs, her everything. But the Admiral was still breathing. Martinez and Davis dropped down seconds later. Martinez grabbed Emily, pulled her to her feet. "You okay?" "I'll live," Emily gasped. "Get those doors open." Davis forced the basement doors open and they stumbled through, dragging the gurney into a dark corridor that smelled like mold in old concrete. Behind them, the elevator shaft was an inferno. They'd made it out. Barely. "Where now?" Martinez asked, coughing from the smoke. Emily checked the Admiral's vitals. His heart rate was elevated, his breathing shallow, but he was alive. "Parking garage, my car. We get him somewhere safe, somewhere we can regroup." "And then what?" Davis asked. "Those operators, they'll keep coming. Keller has resources, connections. He can reach anywhere." Emily knew he was right. Running would only delay the inevitable. Unless they went on offense. "The Admiral said Keller was behind Operation Nightfall," Emily said slowly, her mind working through the implications. "He said something about black sites, about 12 operators being held." "What are you thinking?" Martinez asked. "I'm thinking the Admiral didn't just stumble onto this information. He was investigating it, which means he has proof, evidence, something concrete enough that Keller is willing to burn down a hospital to destroy it. Where would he hide something like that?" Emily thought about Admiral Hawthorne, thought about the way he'd recognized her call sign, thought about the trust she'd seen in his eyes when he'd surrendered to her in the ER. "Somewhere only someone he trusted would think to look," she said quietly. "Somewhere connected to Phoenix." Then it hit her. "The safe house," she whispered. "The SEAL Team 6 safe house in Coronado. The one that officially doesn't exist." "How do you know about that?" Martinez demanded. "Because I used to brief there. Before Kandahar. Before I died." Emily looked at him. If the Admiral was going to hide evidence that explosive, that's where he'd put it. Somewhere off books. Somewhere the brass wouldn't think to look. "That's a 30-minute drive from here," Davis said, "with every operator in Keller's network hunting us." "Then we better drive fast," Emily said. They made it to Emily's Honda without encountering any more operators. Loaded the Admiral into the back seat. Davis and Martinez squeezed in on either side of him, keeping him stable. Emily got behind the wheel, started the engine. Her hands were shaking again, not from fear, from exhaustion, from the adrenaline crash that was threatening to overwhelm her. She'd been in combat for hours, had killed more than a dozen operators, had saved the Admiral 3 times. Her body was screaming for rest. But rest would come later, if they survived. Emily pulled out of the parking garage and onto the dark San Diego streets. Behind them, Naval Medical Center was ablaze. Fire trucks and emergency vehicles were converging on the building. News helicopters circled overhead. The story would be everywhere by morning. Attack on military hospital, multiple casualties. Conspiracy theories would explode across social media. But the truth, the real truth about Vice Admiral Keller and Operation Nightfall would die with them if Emily didn't get to that evidence first. She drove fast, taking back roads, avoiding major intersections. Her training kicked in, running counter-surveillance protocols she hadn't used in years. "We've got a tail," Martinez said from the back seat, looking through the rear window. "Black SUV, 3 cars back." Emily checked her mirror, confirmed it. "How long?" "Since we left the hospital." Emily's jaw tightened. They'd been made. She took a hard right, cutting through a residential neighborhood. The SUV followed. "They're not even trying to hide it," Davis said. "They want us to know they're there." "They're hurting us," Emily realized, "pushing us toward a kill zone." "Martinez, can you reach my phone? It's in the center console." Martinez grabbed it. "Who are you calling?" "Someone I swore I'd never contact unless the world was ending," Emily said. "Considering we're being hunted by a vice admiral who's willing to murder everyone in a hospital to cover up war crimes, I'd say that qualifies." She rattled off a number from memory. Martinez dialed, put it on speaker. The phone rang once. A woman's voice answered. "Valkyrie, actual." "This is Phoenix," Emily said. "Authorization code Delta 79er Echo. I need immediate extraction and tactical support. My location is..." "Phoenix?" The woman's voice changed. "Commander Torres? You're supposed to be dead." "Yeah, well, reports of my death were greatly exaggerated. I've got Admiral Hawthorne with me. He's critical. We're being pursued by ghost ship operators. They've already hit Naval Medical Center. Multiple casualties. And we have confirmation that Vice Admiral Richard Keller is running the operation." Silence on the line. Then, "Say again, you're claiming a Vice Admiral is coordinating assassinations?" "I'm claiming he's trying to cover up Operation Nightfall, black sites, illegal detention of U.S. military personnel. The Admiral has evidence. We're heading to the Coronado safe house to retrieve it." "Phoenix, you can't just accuse." "I watched 12 of his operators die trying to kill us," Emily shouted. "I watched them try to firebomb an entire hospital floor. Either you believe me and send help, or we die in the next 20 minutes and Keller buries everything. Your choice." Another pause. Emily could hear typing in the background. "I'm showing your position now," the woman said. "You've got 2 vehicles in pursuit, another one cutting off your exit to Coronado. Can you get us support?" "I can get you a SEAL team, but they're 40 minutes out. Can you stay alive that long?" Emily looked in her mirror. The SUVs were closing in. "We're going to have to." She hung up and floored the accelerator. The Honda wasn't built for high-speed chases, but Emily drove it like she'd stolen it, weaving through traffic, taking turns that made her passengers gasp. "They're gaining," Davis yelled. Emily saw the 3rd SUV ahead, blocking the road to Coronado. "Hold on." She yanked the wheel hard right, jumped the curb, and cut through a shopping center parking lot. The pursuing SUVs followed. "This isn't working," Martinez said. "We need to stop and fight." "Can't stop," Emily said through gritted teeth. "If we stop, we die. We have to get to that safe house, have to get the evidence." "What if there is no evidence?" Davis asked. "What if the Admiral was bluffing?" Emily met his eyes in the mirror. "Then we die for nothing, and Keller wins." The lead SUV rammed them from behind. The impact threw everyone forward. The Admiral groaned, his sedation wearing off. "He's waking up," Martinez said. "Emily, he's waking up." That was bad. If the Admiral woke up confused and combative in a high-speed chase, he could hurt himself, could hurt them. "Keep him calm," Emily ordered, taking another hard turn. "Talk to him. Tell him he's safe." The Admiral's eyes fluttered open. He looked around, disoriented. What?" "Admiral Hawthorne," Martinez said firmly. "You're safe. We're getting you to a secure location. But I need you to stay still and stay calm. Can you do that for me, sir?" The Admiral's gaze focused on Martinez. then shifted to Davis, then to Emily in the driver's seat. Recognition dawned in his eyes. "Phoenix," he said, his voice weak but clear. "You came back." "Always do, sir," Emily said, taking another turn. "Now sit tight. We're about to make this really interesting." Because ahead of them, Emily could see exactly what she needed. A construction zone, road blocked, detour signs, and most importantly, a narrow gap between barriers that her small Honda could fit through, but the bigger SUVs couldn't. "Everyone brace," Emily shouted. She aimed for the gap and punched it. The Honda squeezed through with inches to spare. The pursuing SUVs tried to follow. They didn't make it. The lead SUV clipped a barrier, spun out, blocked the road for the others. Emily looked in her mirror and allowed herself a grim smile. They'd bought themselves maybe 5 minutes. Maybe. "Coronado Safe House is 2 miles ahead," she said. "We're going to make it." But the Admiral's hand reached forward, grabbed her shoulder. His grip was weak, but insistent. "Phoenix," he said, "you need to know. The evidence. It's not just about Keller. It goes higher. Joint Chiefs, CIA, people who'll do anything to keep it buried." Emily's blood ran cold. "How high?" The Admiral's eyes met hers in the mirror. "All the way to the top." Emily's hands tightened on the wheel. "Sir, with respect, you need to tell me exactly what we're walking into. If this conspiracy reaches above Keller, then getting that evidence could get us all killed?" The Admiral coughed, his face gray with pain. "Already tried to kill me, Phoenix. 3 bullets say they're serious." "Who ordered the hit?" Martinez demanded from the back seat. The Admiral closed his eyes. "Don't know for certain, but the operation that targeted me, it used protocols that only a handful of people have access to. Ghost Ship doesn't exist on any official roster. It's a Black Ops unit funded through compartmentalized programs that Congress doesn't even know about." "How did you find out about Operation Nightfall?" Emily asked, taking another turn toward Coronado. "One of my SEALs didn't come home," the Admiral said quietly. "Lieutenant Commander Jackson Hayes, supposed to be on leave. Instead, I got a call from his wife saying he'd disappeared. No communication, no trace, nothing." Davis leaned forward. "How long ago?" 8 months. The Admiral opened his eyes and they were, "Someone's been disappearing SEALs and you weren't told?" "Worse than that," the Admiral said. "Someone's been using my authority to do it. Forged orders, fake deployments. These men think they're on legitimate missions, but they're being detained in black sites, interrogated about operations that never should have been run in the first place." "What operations?" Martinez asked. The Admiral's jaw clenched. "That's what they want to keep buried." "Phoenix, you remember Operation Desert Falcon, 2018? Emily's blood ran cold. She remembered. She'd been there. A target kill mission in Syria that had gone sideways when they discovered their intel was fabricated. "We were sent to eliminate a high-value target," Emily said slowly. "Except when we got there, the target wasn't a terrorist. He was a Syrian general trying to negotiate peace talks with U.S. diplomats." "You killed him anyway," the Admiral said. "We were fired on first. We defended ourselves," the after-action report said. "The after-action report lied," the Admiral interrupted. "That general was deliberately set up to be killed because someone in our government didn't want those peace talks to happen. Desert Falcon was an assassination disguised as a counter-terrorism operation. And it wasn't the only one." Martinez swore under his breath. "How many?" "At least 7 missions over 4 years, maybe more. All of them targeting foreign nationals who were obstacles to certain political agendas. All of them using elite operators who trusted their orders." The Admiral coughed again, blood flecking his lips. "The 12 operators being held in black sites? They figured it out. They started asking questions. So they were disappeared before they could talk." Emily's mind reeled. She'd been part of illegal assassinations? She'd killed people because someone in Washington wanted them dead? "The evidence you hid," she said, her voice tight. "It proves all this?" Audio recordings of the orders being given, financial records showing how the operations were funded, communications between Keller and his handlers, and testimony from 2 operators who escaped the black sites and made it to me before Ghost Ship caught up with them. "Where are those operators now?" Davis asked. The Admiral's silence was answer enough. Emily pulled up to the safe house, a nondescript beach property that looked abandoned. She killed the engine and sat for a moment, processing everything the Admiral had just told her. If this evidence got out, it wouldn't just destroy Keller. It would bring down government officials, military leadership, maybe entire agencies. "People will do anything to stop this from going public," she said quietly. "That's why I hid it where only someone I trusted would look," the Admiral said. "Phoenix, when I saw you in that ER, when I heard your voice, I knew. I knew you were the one person who'd understand what needed to be done." Emily met his eyes. "Because I was part of it. Because you survived it," the Admiral corrected. "Kandahar, that ambush that supposedly killed you, that wasn't Taliban, was it?" Emily's hands shook. She'd never told anyone the truth about Kandahar, the mission that had ended Phoenix and created Emily Carter. "No," she whispered. "It wasn't Taliban." "Ghost Ship?" Martinez asked, his voice sharp. Emily nodded slowly. "We were extracting a CIA asset, routine operation. Except when we got to the extraction point, our asset was already dead. And the ambush was waiting." She swallowed hard. "My entire team was killed. I survived because I was outside the kill zone when it started. I watched them die, watched my brothers bleed out on that desert floor. And then you disappeared," the Admiral said, "because I realized the coordinates for that extraction were classified. Only 3 people knew where we'd be. Our team leader, me, and whoever sent us the orders." Emily's voice was hollow. "I reported what happened through encrypted channels. 2 days later, a drone strike hit the compound where I was hiding. I barely escaped." "Someone tried to clean up," Davis said. "Someone succeeded," Emily corrected. "Phoenix died in Kandahar. Emily Carter was born, and I've been hiding ever since, trying to figure out who sent my team to die." The Admiral reached forward and gripped her shoulder. "The evidence I hid will tell you. Names, dates, authorization codes. Everyone responsible for Kandahar. Everyone responsible for Operation Nightfall. But Phoenix, you need to understand, once this goes public, there's no going back. People will want you dead, even more than they do now." "Then I'll die standing up instead of hiding," Emily said. "Let's get the evidence." They moved quickly. Emily and Martinez helped the Admiral out of the car, while Davis covered them with his service weapon. The safe house door was locked, but Emily knew the entry code. She'd briefed here dozens of times before Kandahar. Inside, everything was dusty and dark. The power was off. The furniture was covered with sheets. "The armory," the Admiral said, leaning heavily on Martinez, "behind the false wall." Emily led them through the kitchen to a door that looked like a pantry. She pressed a concealed button. The wall panel slid aside, revealing a staircase leading down. "This is seriously some James Bond stuff," Davis muttered. They descended into a basement armory. Weapons lined the walls, ammunition crates stacked in corners, and in the center of the room, a safe built into the floor. "The combination?" Emily asked. The Admiral recited a string of numbers. Emily worked the dial, heard the tumblers click, and pulled the heavy door open. Inside were 3 hard drives, a folder of documents, and a small digital recorder. Emily reached for them. Her hands were shaking again. This was it, the proof that could bring down everyone responsible for Kandahar, for the 12 missing SEALs, for all the illegal operations run in the name of national security. She grabbed the hard drives first. They were heavy, encrypted, military-grade storage. Then the folder. Inside were printouts of financial transactions, authorization codes, communication logs. Finally, the recorder. Emily pressed play. Vice Admiral Keller's voice filled the room. Operation Nightfall is a go. All 12 targets are to be detained and interrogated. Extract everything they know about Desert Falcon, Syrian operations, and any contact with congressional oversight. If they resist, neutralize them. Another voice responded, "Sir, these are our own people. U.S. military personnel, we can't just—" "You can and you will," Keller interrupted. "This comes from the top. The Secretary himself authorized it. These operators are liabilities. They know too much. Either they cooperate or they disappear permanently." Emily felt sick. She'd heard enough. She stopped the recording and looked at the Admiral. "This is enough. This is more than enough to—" The windows exploded inward. Flashbangs detonated throughout the room. Emily went blind, went deaf, her senses overwhelmed. She grabbed the hard drives by instinct, clutched them to her chest as her vision cleared. 4 operators rappelled through the shattered windows, weapons trained on them. "Nobody move," the lead operator commanded. Emily recognized the voice. She'd heard it before, on the stolen radio. This was the commander of Ghost Ship's Delta team. Martinez raised his hand slowly. Davis did the same, his service weapon still holstered. The Admiral stood defiant, even though he could barely stay upright. "Stand down, soldier. That's an order from a superior officer." "You're not my superior officer, sir," the operator said coldly. "My orders come from Vice Admiral Keller, and those orders are to retrieve the evidence you stole and eliminate everyone in this room." "You're going to murder a 3-star admiral?" Martinez demanded. "That's treason." "That's following orders," the operator replied. "Now, Phoenix, put down the hard drives, slowly." Emily looked at the drives in her hands, looked at the Admiral, who was watching her with absolute trust, looked at Davis and Martinez, who'd risked everything to help her. Then she looked at the 4 operators pointing rifles at her head. She smiled. "You know what your problem is?" Emily said conversationally. "You're following orders without thinking. That's how good soldiers become war criminals. Put down the drives. Make me." The operator's finger tightened on his trigger. Emily moved first. She threw the hard drives at the nearest operator, not to hurt him, but to distract him. Then she dove for a weapons rack on the wall. Martinez and Davis reacted instantly. Davis drew his weapon. Martinez grabbed the Admiral and pulled him behind cover. Emily came up with a rifle and started firing. The armory erupted into chaos. Muzzle flashes lit up the room like strobe lights. The sound was deafening in the confined space. Emily fought like a demon. She'd been trained by the best, fought beside the best, survived when the best had died. These ghost ship operators were good, but Emily Torres was Phoenix, and she didn't lose. She took down the first operator with a 3-round burst to the chest. The second one tried to flank her, but Davis caught him with 2 shots. The third operator grabbed a grenade. Emily saw it, recognized what he was about to do. "Grenade!" she screamed. "Everyone out!" She tackled the Admiral and Martinez, driving them toward the staircase as the grenade flew. The explosion was massive in the confined space. The blast wave threw them up the stairs, through the door, into the kitchen above. Emily's ears rang, her body ached, but she was alive. She checked the Admiral first, still breathing, bleeding from new cuts, but alive. Martinez was unconscious, a nasty gash on his forehead. Davis stumbled up from the basement, his face blackened with soot. The last 2 operators are down, but so is the evidence. The drives were destroyed in the blast. Emily's heart sank. All of them? The armories collapsed, everything's buried under rubble. The Admiral grabbed Emily's arm. "The recorder," he gasped. "Did you?" Emily checked her pockets. She grabbed the digital recorder by instinct when the flashbangs went off. It was still there, miraculously intact. "I've got it," she said, holding it up. "That's enough," the Admiral said. "Keller's voice giving the orders. That's enough to start an investigation." "It's not enough to prove everything," Emily protested. "The financial records, the documents, are gone. But Phoenix, sometimes you have to work with what you've got. The Admiral coughed, and this time blood came up. A lot of blood. Emily's medical training kicked in instantly. You're bleeding internally. The explosion must have torn something. We need to get you to a hospital. No hospitals, the Admiral said firmly. Keller has eyes everywhere. The moment we show up, they'll finish what they started. Then you'll die right here, Emily said bluntly. Better than letting Keller win. Emily wanted to scream. She'd come all this way, fought through 24 operators, survived a firebombing and a grenade blast, only to watch the Admiral bleed out from internal injuries she couldn't treat in an abandoned safe house. There has to be another way, she said desperately. Davis checked his phone. The SEAL team backup. They're 10 minutes out. He doesn't have 10 minutes, Emily said, her hands already applying pressure to the Admiral's abdomen, where blood was seeping through his shirt. He's got 5, maybe. Martinez groaned, coming around. What happened? Grenade, Emily said tersely. The Admiral's critical. We need an emergency OR or he dies. Then we improvise one, Martinez said, forcing himself to sit up despite his head injury. I did field medic training in Afghanistan. Between the two of us, we can keep him alive. Emily looked at him, then at Davis, then at the Admiral, who was fading fast. She'd saved him 3 times already today. She wasn't about to stop now. Davis, clear the dining table. Martinez, see what medical supplies you can scrounge. I'll prep the Admiral. They moved with military efficiency, turning the safe house dining room into a battlefield surgical suite. Emily found a bottle of whiskey in the kitchen. Not ideal for sterilization, but better than nothing. She used it to clean her hands and the Admiral's wounds. Martinez returned with a first aid kit scavenged from the bathroom and a sewing kit from a bedroom drawer. You're going to suture him with embroidery thread? Davis asked incredulously. I've used worse, Emily said. Davis, boil some water. Sterilize these needles as best you can. She examined the Admiral's abdomen. The bleeding was coming from his surgical site. The incisions from his earlier surgery had torn open from the blast impact. Sir, Emily said gently, this is going to hurt a lot. We don't have anesthesia. The Admiral's eyes met hers. Do what you need to do, Phoenix. I trust you. Emily took a shaky breath. Then she began. She worked by the light of her phone's flashlight, using the embroidery needle and thread to close the torn incisions. Her hands were steady, her training overriding her exhaustion. The Admiral bit down on a leather belt, muffling his screams. Martinez assisted, applying pressure to slow the bleeding while Emily stitched. Davis stood guard at the windows, watching for more ghost ship operators. It took 20 minutes that felt like 20 hours. But finally, Emily tied off the last suture. It's not pretty, she said, but it'll hold until we can get you proper medical care. The Admiral's face was gray, sheened with sweat. You have the steadiest hands I've ever seen, Phoenix. You told me that before, Emily said softly. In Kandahar, right before everything went to hell, and you're still standing, the Admiral said. Still fighting. That's why I trusted you with this. Outside, Emily heard vehicles approaching. Multiple vehicles. Davis tensed. We've got company. Could be the SEAL team backup. Could be more ghost ship. Emily grabbed a rifle from the armory, one of the few weapons that had survived the blast. Martinez, stay with the Admiral. Davis, you're with me. They took positions at the windows, weapons ready. 4 black SUVs pulled up outside. Doors opened. Emily's finger moved to her trigger. Then she saw the uniforms. Navy SEALs. A full team, weapons hot, moving in tactical formation. The lead SEAL called out, Phoenix, this is Team 7. Admiral Hawthorne sent a distress signal before his phone went dead. Are you secure? Emily lowered her weapon. Secure for now. We've got multiple casualties. The Admiral's critical. We need immediate medical evac. The SEALs entered fast and professional. Their medic took over the Admiral's care. Their commander, a hard-eyed lieutenant commander, approached Emily. Ma'am, I'm Lieutenant Commander James Ryder. We've been briefed on the situation. Vice Admiral Keller has issued orders for your arrest. Emily's stomach dropped. On what charges? Murder of federal agents, destruction of military property, espionage. Ryder paused. Ma'am, with respect, you need to come with us. For your own protection. Protection or detention? Emily asked sharply. That depends on whether you cooperate. Emily looked at Davis, who was watching the exchange carefully, looked at Martinez, who was still conscious despite his head injury, looked at the Admiral, who was being loaded onto a stretcher. The Admiral reached out and grabbed Ryder's arm. Lieutenant Commander, Phoenix is under my direct authority. She is not to be detained. She is to be protected. Is that understood? Ryder hesitated. Sir, my orders from JSOC are superseded by my orders as Commander of Naval Special Warfare, the Admiral said, his voice weak but carrying absolute authority. Phoenix has evidence of war crimes being committed at the highest levels of military command, evidence that people have died to protect. You will ensure that evidence reaches the right people, or you will answer to me. Ryder looked at Emily. What evidence? Emily held up the digital recorder. Vice Admiral Keller ordering the illegal detention and interrogation of U.S. military personnel. And there's more, much more. Ryder took the recorder carefully. If this is real, this is explosive. It's real, the Admiral said. I verified every piece of information personally. Phoenix has risked her life to protect it. And now, Lieutenant Commander, I'm ordering you to protect her, because the moment Keller finds out she survived, he'll throw everything he has at her. Ryder nodded slowly. Understood, sir. He turned to his team. Load the Admiral for medical evac, emergency priority, and get me a secure line to NCIS headquarters. We're about to drop a bomb on some very powerful people. As the SEAL medics worked, Emily felt the adrenaline finally crashing. Her legs gave out. She sat down hard on the floor. Davis knelt beside her. You okay? I killed 17 people today, Emily whispered. Maybe more. I lost count. You saved lives, Davis corrected. You saved the Admiral. You saved Martinez and me. You saved whatever's left of the honor in this operation. Emily looked at him with hollow eyes. I was part of it, Davis. The illegal operations. I killed people because someone in Washington wanted them dead. I'm not a hero. I'm a weapon that someone else was using. No, Davis said firmly. A weapon doesn't make choices. You did. You chose to save the Admiral instead of protecting your cover. You chose to risk everything to expose the truth. That's not a weapon. That's a warrior. Emily wanted to believe him, wanted to believe she'd done the right thing, but all she could see were the faces of the people she'd killed. The operators who died because they were following orders. The Syrian general whose death she'd caused. Her entire SEAL team, killed because someone wanted to silence them. The Admiral was loaded into an ambulance. Ryder approached Emily again. Ma'am, we need to get you to a secure location, somewhere we can debrief you properly, and somewhere Keller can't reach you. Emily stood up slowly. Where? Quantico. FBI has secure facilities there. NCIS investigators are already being briefed. By tomorrow morning, this is going to be the biggest scandal in military history. Emily looked at the safe house one last time. 24 hours ago, she'd been Nurse Emily Carter, invisible and forgotten. Now she was Commander Emily Torres again. Phoenix rising from the ashes, and Vice Admiral Keller's worst nightmare. Let's finish this, she said quietly. The convoy rolled through the dark California streets toward Quantico. Emily sat in the back of an armored SUV, flanked by 2 SEALs. Davis was in the vehicle behind them, with Martinez. The Admiral had been airlifted to Bethesda Naval Hospital 30 minutes ago. Ryder sat in the passenger seat, constantly checking his phone, coordinating with NCIS and FBI. Emily watched the city lights blur past her window. Her body ached. Her hands were finally shaking again, not from fear, but from exhaustion that went bone deep. "Commander Torres," Ryder said without turning around, "when we get to Quantico, you'll be debriefed by a joint task force. NCIS, FBI, DOD, Inspector General. They'll want to know everything about Operation Nightfall and your involvement in the missions leading up to Kandahar." "I understand," Emily said quietly. "They'll also want to know why you faked your death and operated under a false identity for 5 years. Emily met his eyes in the rearview mirror. "Because someone tried to kill me, and I needed to figure out who before they finished the job." "And did you figure it out?" Emily thought about the recording in Ryder's possession, Keller's voice ordering the detention of 12 SEALs. But something didn't sit right. Keller was a vice admiral, powerful, but not powerful enough to run an operation like Ghost Ship without authorization from higher up. "I figured out who gave the orders," Emily said, "but not who gave them their orders." Ryder's jaw tightened. "You think this goes above Keller?" "The Admiral said it reached the Joint Chiefs, maybe higher. And if that's true, the lead vehicle in their convoy exploded. The blast was massive, flipping the SUV end over end. Emily's vehicle swerved hard, the driver fighting for control. "Contact front!" one of the SEALs shouted. Gunfire erupted from buildings on both sides of the street. Not random fire, coordinated, precise, professional. "It's an ambush," Ryder yelled. "All vehicles, evasive action." The driver punched the accelerator. The armored SUV took multiple hits, rounds sparking off the reinforced exterior. Emily's training kicked in. "How did they know our route?" Ryder was already on the radio, calling for backup. "Air support, we need immediate..." The radio went dead. Jammed. Emily's blood ran cold. "They're jamming our communications. This isn't Ghost Ship. This is military-grade coordination." "Then who?" The second convoy vehicle exploded. Davis and Martinez were in that vehicle. "No!" Emily screamed. She saw Davis stumble out of the burning wreckage, dragging Martinez. Then she saw the sniper dot appear on Davis's chest. Emily didn't think. She kicked open her door and dove out of the moving vehicle. She hit the pavement hard, rolled, came up running. The sniper adjusted aim, tracking her instead of Davis. Good. That was the point. Emily sprinted in a zigzag pattern, making herself a harder target. Rounds hit the pavement around her feet. She reached Davis and Martinez, grabbed them both. "Move! Get to cover!" They dove behind a concrete barrier as the sniper kept firing. Emily's vehicle had stopped. Ryder and the remaining SEALs were returning fire, trying to identify targets. But the ambushers were invisible, fighting from elevated positions with thermal scopes and suppressed weapons. "This is wrong," Emily muttered. "This is all wrong." "What?" Davis gasped, blood running down his face from a new cut. "Ghost Ship operators wouldn't use this much firepower. They work quiet. This is loud, public. It's..." Then she understood. "They're not trying to kill us quietly," she said, her voice hollow. "They're trying to make it look like a terrorist attack. Maximum chaos, maximum confusion. And in the chaos, they eliminate us and blame it on extremists." Martinez groaned. "That's insane." "That's brilliant," Emily corrected bitterly. "No investigation, no questions, just another tragic attack on military personnel." Ryder appeared beside them, his face grim. "We can't stay here. We're sitting ducks." "Where do we go?" Davis demanded. "They've got us surrounded." Emily scanned their surroundings. They were in an industrial area, warehouses on both sides, limited cover, multiple angles of fire. Then she saw it. A drainage tunnel, partially hidden behind debris. Old infrastructure, probably dating back decades. "There," she said, pointing. "Underground. It's our only shot." "That could be a dead end," Ryder protested. "Or it could be survival." "Your choice, Lieutenant Commander." A grenade landed 10 feet away. Ryder made his choice. "Everyone move, now!" They ran for the tunnel entrance. Emily covered their retreat, firing controlled bursts to keep the ambushers suppressed. The grenade detonated. The blast wave threw Emily forward. She tumbled into the tunnel entrance just as the SEAL team followed. They were underground, in darkness, but alive. Emily counted heads: Ryder, Davis, Martinez, 3 other SEALs, 7 total. They'd started with 12. "Keep moving," Emily ordered, taking point. "They'll be coming after us." The tunnel was narrow, barely wide enough for them to move single file. Water dripped from the ceiling. The air smelled like rot and chemicals. Emily's phone still had battery. She used it as a flashlight, illuminating the path ahead. Behind them, she heard voices, boots splashing through water. The hunters had entered the tunnel. "Faster," Emily urged. "We need to put distance between." Ryder grabbed her shoulder, spun her around. He was pointing a gun at her head. "I'm sorry, Commander," he said quietly, "but I have my orders." Emily's world stopped. "What?" "The recording. Hand it over. Now." "You're working for Keller," Emily said, her voice flat with betrayal. "Not Keller," Ryder said. "Someone much more important. Someone who can't afford to have Operation Nightfall exposed." The other 3 SEALs had their weapons trained on Davis and Martinez. They'd been compromised from the start. "The ambush," Emily said slowly, understanding dawning. "You set it up. Killed your own men to make it look real." "Acceptable losses," Ryder said coldly. "The recording, Commander. Last chance." Emily's mind raced. The recording was in Ryder's pocket. He'd taken it at the safe house. But he didn't know that Emily had made a backup. While stitching the Admiral's wounds, while her hands were bloody and everyone was distracted, she'd used her phone to record the playback of Keller's voice from the digital recorder. The backup file was in her phone's encrypted storage. "The recording's in your pocket," Emily said carefully. "You took it from me at the safe house, remember?" Ryder's eyes narrowed. "I took the recorder, but you're smart, Phoenix. Too smart. You made a backup. Where is it?" "Even if I did, you think I'd tell you?" "I think you don't want to watch your friends die," Ryder said. He gestured to his men. "Start with the security guard." One of the SEALs pressed his pistol against Davis's head. Emily's hands clenched. "Wait. Where's the backup?" Ryder demanded. Emily looked at Davis, who was staring at her with absolute trust. Looked at Martinez, barely conscious but watching her with the same faith. They believed she'd get them out of this. They believed Phoenix would save them. But Phoenix couldn't save everyone. She'd learned that in Kandahar. "It's on my phone," Emily said quietly. "Encrypted. I'm the only one who can access it." "Then access it," Ryder ordered. "Transfer the file to me. Now." Emily slowly pulled out her phone. Her fingers moved across the screen. But she wasn't accessing the backup file. She was activating an emergency protocol. One she'd installed 5 years ago when she'd gone into hiding. A dead man's switch. If she didn't deactivate it within 60 seconds, her phone would upload everything in its encrypted storage to a dozen different news organizations, congressional oversight committees, and military whistleblower networks. Everything, including the backup recording of Keller's orders. "It's uploading," Emily said, holding up the phone so Ryder could see the progress bar. 60 seconds and you'll have it." Ryder lowered his weapon slightly. "Good. See? Cooperation makes this easier for everyone." Emily watched the timer count down. 50 seconds. 45. She needed to keep Ryder distracted. "Who gave you your orders?" she asked. "Who's protecting Operation Nightfall?" Ryder smiled. "You'll never know, and it won't matter, because in about 2 minutes, you and everyone who knows about Nightfall will be dead, and the recording will be destroyed." 30 seconds. "You're willing to murder fellow service members," Emily said. "Men and women who fought beside you. How do you sleep at night?" "Soundly," Ryder said, "because I know I'm protecting something bigger than individuals. National security requires sacrifice. You, of all people, should understand that." 20 seconds. I understand sacrifice, Emily said. But this isn't sacrifice. This is murder. There's a difference. 15 seconds. Philosophical distinctions don't matter when you're dead, Ryder said. He raised his weapon again. Files uploaded. Give me the phone. Sure, Emily said. She threw the phone at him. Hard. Ryder caught it instinctively, and in that split second when his attention was on the phone and not on Emily, she moved. She grabbed his gun hand, twisted, used his own momentum to slam him into the tunnel wall. The weapon discharged, the round going wild. Davis reacted instantly, tackling the SEAL who'd been holding a gun to his head. Martinez, despite his injuries, threw himself at another SEAL's legs. The tunnel erupted into chaos. Hand-to-hand combat in confined darkness, with only Emily's dropped phone providing flickering light. Emily fought with everything she had. She disarmed Ryder, delivered a knee strike to his solar plexus, and grabbed his dropped weapon. But Ryder was SEAL trained too. He recovered fast, swept her legs, and they both went down into the filthy tunnel water. They grappled. Ryder was bigger, stronger, but Emily was angrier. She thought about her team, killed in Kandahar, about the Admiral, shot 3 times, about the 12 SEALs being tortured in black sites, about 5 years of hiding because men like Ryder valued secrets more than lives. Emily's thumb found Ryder's eye. He screamed, releasing his grip. She came up with his pistol and put it against his temple. Call them off, she said, her voice cold as death. Your backup. Call them off or I put a round through your brain. Ryder laughed, blood in his mouth. You think you've won? Phoenix, you're already dead. We all are. Look at your phone. Emily glanced at her dropped phone. The screen was cracked, but she could still see the display. The upload hadn't completed. The phone had been damaged when she'd thrown it. The file was corrupted, only partially sent. No, Emily whispered. Yes, Ryder said. Your backup's gone. The original recording's about to be destroyed, and you've got maybe 30 seconds before ghost ship operators find us and kill everyone in this tunnel. You lose, Phoenix. You fought hard, but you lose. Emily's gun hands shook. She could do it, could pull the trigger. One less traitor in the world, but that would make her just like them. She lowered the weapon. No, I don't lose, because you're wrong about one thing. What's that? I didn't upload the file to my phone, Emily said. I uploaded it from the Admiral's phone before they airlifted him to Bethesda. While everyone was distracted with his injuries, I took his phone, copied my recording to it, and set up the dead man switch on his device. Ryder's face went pale. You're lying. Am I? Check the time. It's been 10 minutes since the Admiral's chopper took off. By now that phone's been processed by hospital security, logged into evidence, and if anything happens to the Admiral or me, the file uploads automatically. Emily smiled grimly. You can kill me. You can kill everyone here, but you can't stop what's already in motion. She was bluffing. She hadn't had time to copy anything to the Admiral's phone, but Ryder didn't know that. He lunged for his radio. Abort! Abort mission! Fall back! Too late, Emily said, because even though she was bluffing about the Admiral's phone, her original dead man switch had just activated. Her phone screen showed the upload completing despite the damage. The backup file had made it through, barely, but enough. Within minutes, the recording of Keller's orders would be in the hands of journalists, investigators, and congressmen who couldn't be bought or intimidated. It's over, Ryder, Emily said quietly. Operation Nightfall just went public. Ryder stared at her with hate and something that might have been respect. You have no idea what you've done. The people behind this, they'll never stop hunting you. Let them come, Emily said. I'm done hiding. Sirens wailed above them. Real backup this time. NCIS, FBI, probably half the federal law enforcement in California. Davis appeared beside Emily, battered but alive. Martinez needs medical attention. but he'll make it." "And the SEALs?" Emily asked. "Two surrendered, one didn't." Davis's expression said enough about what happened to the one who didn't surrender. Emily felt hollow. More death, more blood on her hands. But this time, it had meant something. Ryder and his remaining conspirators were taken into federal custody. Emily, Davis, and Martinez were extracted from the tunnel and rushed to a secure military hospital. The news broke within hours. Recording leaked of Vice Admiral ordering illegal detention of U.S. military personnel. Military scandal reaches highest levels. Calls for investigation echo through Congress. Vice Admiral Richard Keller was arrested at his home in Virginia at 6:47 a.m., 3 hours after Emily's backup file went public. Emily watched the news coverage from her hospital bed, her body aching but her mind finally quiet. Admiral Hawthorne was in the room next to hers, stable and recovering. He'd sent word through the nurses that he wanted to see her. Emily made her way to his room on unsteady legs. He was propped up in bed, looking old and tired, but alive. "Phoenix," he said warmly. "Come in, close the door." Emily did. She sat in the chair beside his bed. "You did it," the Admiral said. "You exposed them, all of them." "Not all of them," Emily said. "Keller's arrested, but he's not talking. And whoever gave him his orders is still out there." "For now," the Admiral agreed. "But Phoenix, you started something that can't be stopped. Congressional hearings are scheduled. The Inspector General is investigating. The 12 operators we lost, they're being extracted as we speak. You saved them." Emily's eyes burned with tears she'd been holding back for hours. "I didn't save everyone. 5 SEALs died in that convoy. More died at the hospital. My entire team died in Kandahar because I couldn't." "You couldn't save everyone," the Admiral interrupted gently. "None of us can. But you saved who you could. And you fought for justice when it would have been easier to stay hidden. That matters, Phoenix. That matters more you know." Emily wiped her eyes. "What happens now?" "Now? You testify. You tell the truth about everything. Desert Falcon, Kandahar, Operation Nightfall, all of it." "They'll destroy me," Emily said. "My career, my reputation. Everything I've done will be questioned." "Yes," the Admiral agreed. "They will. But you'll survive it. Because that's what Phoenix does. She rises from the ashes." Emily looked at him. "I don't want to rise anymore, sir. I'm tired of fighting, tired of war, tired of watching people die." The Admiral studied her face. "What do you want?" Emily thought about the past 5 years, thought about being Nurse Emily Carter, helping people heal instead of training them to kill. Thought about the young sailor with appendicitis who'd smiled at her sympathetically. Thought about the satisfaction of saving lives instead of taking them. "I want to teach," Emily said quietly. "Not combat, not tactics, medicine, trauma care. I want to train the next generation of combat medics so they can save lives when everything goes to hell." The Admiral smiled. "Then that's what you'll do. I'll personally authorize your transfer to the Naval Special Warfare Medical Training Program. You'll teach SEALs how to keep each other alive." Emily felt something unknot in her chest. "Thank you, sir." "Thank you, Phoenix," the Admiral said. "You gave me my life back, multiple times. Let me return the favor." 6 months later, Emily stood in front of 40 SEAL candidates at the Naval Special Warfare Training Center in Coronado. She wore utilities with commander's insignia. Her hair was pulled back in a regulation bun. The scar above her eyebrow was visible, a reminder of battles fought and survived. "I'm Commander Emily Torres," she said, her voice carrying across the classroom. "Call sign, Phoenix. I was the first woman to complete SEAL training. I operated with DevGru for 8 years in combat zones, from Afghanistan to Syria. I've saved 19 lives in the field and killed enemies of this country in over 40 missions." The candidates watched her with awe and uncertainty. "But the most important thing I ever learned," Emily continued, "wasn't how to fight. It was when not to fight. when to be the healer instead of the warrior. Because at the end of the day, our job isn't to take lives, it's to protect them, to bring our brothers and sisters home alive. She paused, looking at each young face. Some of you will face situations where the easy choice is violence, where pulling the trigger feels like the only option. I'm here to teach you that there's always another option, that the truest measure of a warrior isn't how many enemies they've killed, it's how many friends they've saved. A hand went up. A young woman in the front row. "Ma'am, is it true you faked your death and hid for 5 years?" Emily met her eyes steadily. "Yes, I was betrayed by people I trusted. My entire team was killed. I survived because I learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is live. Not die gloriously, but live quietly and wait for your moment to fight back." She paused. That moment came, and when it did, I was ready. "What happened to the people who betrayed you?" another candidate asked. "Some are in prison," Emily said. "Some are dead, but some are still out there, still in positions of power, still making decisions that put people like you in danger." She let that sink in. "Which is why I'm here, to teach you to think critically, to question orders that don't make sense, to protect each other even when your own command structure fails you." The class murmured, processing this. "Now," Emily said, her tone shifting to business. "Pair up. Today we're learning how to perform a needle decompression under fire. By the end of this course, your hands will be steady enough to do it in the dark while someone's shooting at you, because that's when your teammate will need you most." The candidates paired off, energized and focused. Emily walked among them, correcting techniques, offering encouragement. And for the first time in 5 years, she felt at peace. She wasn't hiding anymore, wasn't pretending to be someone she wasn't. She was Emily Torres. She was Phoenix. She was both the warrior and the healer. And she was exactly where she needed to be. That night, Emily returned to her small apartment near the base. It was modest, furnished simply. Nothing like the safe houses and anonymous rooms she'd lived in for half a decade. But it was hers. Her name was on the lease. Her mail came addressed to Commander Emily Torres. She was real again. Her phone buzzed. A text from Davis, who'd taken a position as head of security at Naval Medical Center. "Saw the news. Congressional hearing starts next week. You ready?" Emily typed back, "As ready as I'll ever be." Another text came in, this one from Dr. Chen, who'd been one of the first witnesses to corroborate Emily's testimony about the hospital attack. "Proud of you. Give them hell." Emily smiled. She would. She walked to her window and looked out at the Pacific Ocean. Somewhere out there, 12 SEALs were reuniting with their families after months of illegal detention. Somewhere, investigators were building cases against corrupt officials who'd valued secrecy over honor. And somewhere, the people who'd ordered Operation Nightfall were realizing that Phoenix hadn't just survived, she'd won. Emily Torres had been many things: a SEAL, an operator, a ghost, a nurse, a fugitive. But now, finally, she was herself. Scars and all, truth and all, standing in the light instead of hiding in shadows. The legend hadn't died in Kandahar. She'd been waiting for the right moment to rise. And when that moment came, she'd burned brighter than anyone could have imagined. Because that's what Phoenix does. She doesn't just survive the fire, she becomes it. And from those ashes, she builds something better than what came before. Emily closed the curtain and turned back to her small apartment. Tomorrow, she'd face Congress. She'd tell the truth about operations that should never have been run and leaders who'd betrayed the warriors they commanded. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be safe. But it would be right. And after 5 years of hiding, after a lifetime of following orders without question, Emily Torres had finally learned the most important lesson of all. The strongest warriors aren't the ones who never question. They're the ones who ask why, who demand accountability, and who fight for truth, even when truth is dangerous. They're the ones who understand that real courage isn't dying for your country, it's living for it, fighting for it to be better, and refusing to let corruption wear the uniform of honor. Emily had been invisible for so long, but now everyone would see her. Everyone would hear her truth, and the people who tried to silence her would learn that some flames can't be extinguished. They can only burn brighter until everything corrupt in their path turns to ash. Commander Emily Torres, call sign Phoenix, was done hiding, and the whole world was about to discover what happened when you tried to kill a legend who refused to die.